We're back with our live chats with our debaters tonight. We're joined now by Alexis Ohanian, accomplished guy, many different things. We maybe know him best in the internet as the co-founder of the phenomenal social news website, Reddit. And more importantly, he's joining Glenn Greenwald to argue against. Careful.
I have prepared for the wrong debate, sir. Yeah.
To argue against the resolution. Be it resolved, state surveillance is a legitimate defense of our freedoms. Alexis, important to have you at this debate because in addition to being a relentless campaigner for a free and open web, you're a guy who has some real tech savvy and some business chops.
I think I'm the only tech nerd and business person in the debate tonight. Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit just about your criticism of the current regime of surveillance and let's talk about first how you think that impacts American companies that are trying to, as you have with Reddit and others, trying to build internet businesses that they want to see go the world over.
Well, it has a huge impact. And these days, thanks to the success that I've had, I'm an investor in over 100 companies. So I see this every day, and I think about this a lot. You know, the sort of brand, the perception of countries like the United States and Canada is in part because we have a reputation for protecting an individual's right to privacy, for any user all across the world to know, in theory, that their data is or are safe, right? That we as a nation have benefited so much. We lead the world, frankly, when it comes to tech innovation, and part of that has been because people trusted what was on our servers. And that's no longer the case. And so the cost, I mean, Forrester's estimated it in the billions, is what it's going to take now that the tech sector doesn't have the same level of trust. And here's the thing, right? I'm very fond of saying the world is not flat, but the World Wide Web is. And what that means is that competitive edge we have is not at all permanent. It means that the next Facebook or the next Google could come out of Berlin or come out of Seoul just as easily from a technological standpoint. And there's a very good chance now that is going to be more than likely to happen simply because of what has happened as a result of mass surveillance.
You're more than token under 40 debater tonight, so you're a lot closer to, in fact, a lot of the people that have been closely following this whole issue of state surveillance. It's really galvanized, I think, a younger generation. Why do you think that is? I mean, what is the threat of state surveillance in your mind to the web itself and like the values of the web and how your demographic, I'm a little bit older, but how people your age and younger think about the web?
Well, you know, we have known firsthand what advantages the open internet provides us, right? We take these things almost for granted, right? I can look a 20-year-old in the eyes and tell her, you can start the next Google from your laptop. You can experiment with some cool art project from the powers of the internet. What privacy allows us to do is it allows us to experiment and to tinker. It's the source of innovation. And that right to privacy, instilled in the Fourth Amendment of the American Constitution, lets us know that we have the right and the freedom to create without worrying at every moment, at every second that someone is watching and someone is looking. And so the same technology that's allowed so many of us to create and make amazing things and change our lives, change the world, is now also enabling a level of mass surveillance that is just absolutely unacceptable. And I think this generation understands that particularly well because we've grown up with the internet. When we are very acutely aware of the implications of a program that slurps up everything within reach. And ultimately, I think the common ground I hope to find with our opponents is that we all want security. My argument, and I suspect Glenn's, is that from a technologist standpoint, what we're doing with mass surveillance in the name of security is actually making us less secure. And that itself is a fundamental problem.
Okay, well, unpackage that for us.
Sure.
Why do you think it's making us less secure?
Well, so without, I don't want to nerd out too much, right?
Okay, go ahead.
But the sort of one explanation of it is a lot of what we've seen the NSA do, a lot of what we've seen in the name of, again, security, has been sort of akin to law enforcement deducing that there is a special kind of key that can unlock every door in a town. And instead of notifying everyone and improving the system, they're holding that secret. They're betting on the fact that hopefully no one else takes advantage of that and breaks in every home because they want to one day maybe use that to take advantage of some bad person. The reality is we're not just talking about a town, we're talking about the connected web, the World Wide Web now that's being affected. And because they want to exploit this vulnerability, it actually makes us less secure, because who's to stop the Chinese hacker from taking advantage of that exploit? Who's to stop some other nefarious actor from doing it? And that kind of recklessness is something that is just untenable. It's totally untenable.
Mm-hmm. How would you respond to like the older generation who might say, you know what, you guys don't really know what it's like to face a real existential threat. You know, we dealt with Second World War, Vietnam. These were real fights, and you don't know how dangerous the world is. So, you know what? Get over your privacy. That's fine for you now, but grow up and understand that, hey, the world's a dangerous place. There's dangerous people out there that are trying to hurt us, and we got to find the bad guys.
Well, I agree. It is a dangerous world. And what we need to be doing is making sure we're using this new technology that I would reckon I probably understand pretty well in the smartest, best way possible, and not do things that undermine our security. It's not really a choice between some amount of privacy and some amount of security. It really comes down to using the technology for the best means to ensure security without those violations of privacy. And look, it's bigger than just the threats on our national security, the sort of terrorist boogeymen that we all know about. It is fundamental to America's success that we have a kind of economic strength and an economic security. That's part of, I think, the national security question. And again, the things we do technologically not only undermine us from a civil liberties standpoint, not only from a security standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. And all of those things, when taken together, make it absolutely not worth the cost.
What do you think the future of this debate is? Do you think there's the potential to kind of de-escalate for countries, Canada, the United States, maybe Europe, to say, let's put more controls on our signals intelligence, on our intelligence agencies? Or do you think it's really tough for politicians to say, okay, I'm listening to you on privacy now, but don't blame me if there's another attack, because that's what a lot of them will say, right? I'd love to deal with your privacy concerns now, but I know you'll kick me out of office tomorrow if there's another 9/11 and it wasn't caught, before it became an attack on my watch. Are you sympathetic to that political kind of conundrum?
Well, these politicians have a duty to us, right? We're their bosses. We employ them, we fund their salaries, we fire them when we need to. I think what they need to hear is the fact that an overwhelming number now of us in the West, of us in free democracies, are not willing to make that trade because of all the reasons I mentioned before, and because simply there is a better approach to this. It has been done with such a heavy-handed approach. It has been done in largely secrecy. We've had some of the highest ranks of the American intelligence departments lying under oath to Congress about what they were doing, right? Who is watching the watchers? In a free democracy, I think every one of us believes sunlight is a great disinfectant, and we need a lot more of that sunlight now. And we've had our trust betrayed. And so now the onus is on our elected officials, again, as our employees, to win back that trust. And the way to do that is with transparency.
So Edward Snowden, traitor or patriot?
Patriot.
I mean, the obvious answer for you is obvious, but explain that again. Why do you think that he deserves real accolades here? And I assume you would support him coming back to the United States, not being charged, a free citizen in America tomorrow.
Yes, well, I've very much gone on the record, various news outlets just elsewhere, about this matter. When you look at men like the folks behind the Pentagon Papers and Mr. Daniel Ellsberg speaking out as a voice of sympathy for Edward, you see the historical precedent, right? You see someone who was also a whistleblower, who fortunately did what he was able to do in order to bring transparency to a really dark time and a really dark setting. But it was what the country needed. And likewise, I think Edward has had to endure quite a lot in the name of what I think is really genuinely an incredibly heroic act of patriotism. This is an opportunity for all of us as Americans, as Canadians, as believers in free society, to look inward and say, what kind of countries do we want to be? Do we want to be countries that live up to the ideals of our founding fathers and the founding documents that support things like civil liberties we cherish, or not? And we never really got to have that discussion. I was in college when 9/11 happened, and I feel like we have an opportunity now, over a decade after, to start to take an honest, hopefully patient look at, and frankly critical look at, laws that were passed and actions that have been taken since that we never really got a chance to catch our breath and take. And I know that they were done with the best of intentions, but the reason we have these democracies, or at the core, at the heart of these democracies, is an ability to sort of remix things. It's like it's an ever-changing code base. We can pass amendments. We know that we're always working towards a more perfect state, and we're not there yet. But this is a chance now that we've had all this sunlight, thanks to Edward, to get us back on the right path.
Okay. Well, we're going to pause here, but the big debate happens tonight,
Yes.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on theintercept.com and www.monkdebates.com/live. And again, terrific to have you here in Toronto.
Thank you for having me.
A real
Thank you for
pleasure.
having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We got our two other debaters arguing the other side of this, arguing in favor of state surveillance. Storied lawyer, civil libertarian Alan Dershowitz, and the former head of the NSA, Michael Hayden. They'll be right up in a matter of moments. Stay tuned. Thanks.